Hello, and welcome to another episode of Believe TV. My name is Bruce Sampson. I am your host, and I'd like to thank you so much for joining us today. Um, if you've never watched the show before, this is an interactive forum where we talk about any number of things, but our theme is embrace the possible. And the idea is to educate and inspire and encourage and to unite uh, through discussion and through hearing people's stories and things of that nature. Oftentimes, I will have guests on, and I hope to have another guest on soon. This week, it's just me, and the theme this week is um, it's actually kind of open because what I wanted to do was to give folks an opportunity to chime in and give me questions or ideas of what you'd like to talk about. But I wanted to approach it from the standpoint of perspective. Perspective is something that I actually talk about quite a bit uh, and incorporate into different discussions, whether it's regardless of who I'm talking to or what the real big topic is at the moment. So perspective. It's one of the things that I strive for in my own life, just in in how I approach uh, each day and how I interact with folks and all of that. And I try to have a sense of perspective in everything and how I perceive the world and also in how I respond and interact with others. If you are tuning in, please know that this is an interactive space, and I'd love to hear from you, even if it's just to say, "Hey, I'm watching, and I'm watching from Nashville, Tennessee." Wherever you happen to be, um, that's always appreciated. And whether or not you are watching live or whether you're watching uh, on replay, I'm just happy that you're here, and thank you so much for sharing this time. So last week during the program, I kind of teased that this week I would have some announcements to make and some things I was going to share with you. And to be honest, right up until this very second, I'm still questioning how much of that I want to share, and uh, and if it's the right time to share some of it. Excuse me. And but but I am going to share some things with you. So it's been a busy week and a busy few weeks for me. I'm sure it's the same for virtually everyone. My life is weird. Talking about perspective, is that my life is weird in that there have been points, especially in the year 2020, where but this is true a lot of the time, where there's virtually nothing going on, nothing. Right? I just have to try to think up stuff to do and to keep me occupied and whatever. There'll be those moments. And then there will be those times when I just can't breathe because there's so much stuff on my plate. There's so much stuff going on. And and sometimes when I get like that, it sometimes becomes difficult for me um to really focus and to move forward with any given thing because I'm overwhelmed by the enormity of the amount of things I have on my plate and the amount of things in front of me. The other thing that happens uh, in those situations is I will still tend to be approached by folks who will ask me to take part in something else or to take on another project, whatever it is. And my natural nature is to want to say yes. I will, yes, I'll do that. Yes, I'll take that on. I'll always go into it approaching it from the standpoint of, yeah, sure, I'm sure I can figure that out. I'm sure I can make time for that. Sure, I can do that for you. And one of the things I'm learning in my old age is that one, it's okay to say no, and to say that, I can't do that right now. And to be honest and say, I'm a little overwhelmed right now. I can't take that on. And what I found is that people generally respect that when you're honest and just say, hey, look, I've just got a full plate and I just can't do that. And oftentimes the things that I'm asked to do are things that I would very much like to, and oftentimes they fall into my wheelhouse of the things that I think that I'm good at or that I can make a positive contribution to. And sometimes I'll have to say no to those things because I previously already had stuff on my plate. I already had stuff lined up. And so this season of my life at this moment is like that as well. Oh, we have someone saying hello, and it's my dear friend, Miss Karen from Hamburg, Germany. Very early today. Greetings from Germany. Um, Good to see you. Thank you so much for tuning in. So just like that, any of you who are watching, feel free to say hello and tell me where you're watching from. Um, but yeah, in this season of life that I am in, I I am learning a lot of things. I've probably learned more in this last year, and again, this is probably true for everyone because of how strange and eventful this past year has been, or this past year and a half. Um, well, I guess we'd say a year, a little over a year. How strange it's been, and how eventful it's been, and it's put us in a situation where we get to think more, and we've had opportunity to try new things and look at things differently and have perspective. And what's really interesting that I found is how often I am faced with situations where or encounters or just being made aware of people who see things very, very differently than I do. And what I mean by that is, I mean, clearly, of course, we're all different and we all have different opinions and thoughts and, and experiences and all of that. So that's not anything new. I've known that in my entire life. But what I think I find interesting, I'm trying to think of the best way to explain this, but some of it has to do with, like, for instance, there are times when, for instance, I'm watching the news, right? And information comes out, like with regard to the pandemic. Let's just go back to the beginning of that. And when they first announced the whole thing about social distancing and wearing masks, okay, my reaction to that was, okay, great. My mind immediately went to, okay, where can I get masks? I had a couple of masks in the house because I had those painter's masks, those, I think they're the C95 masks, whatever, that that I bought before because I was going to be doing some painting and some bleaching of some wood and stuff, um, and I just had it. I just happened to have it around the house, so that's what I started with. But I knew I was going to need more of them because the ones I had were the disposable kind. So, I wasn't going to wear those multiple times. And so that's where my mind went. I remember feeling shocked when I then watched the news and start hearing about different people and their hi, Miss Emma, Miss Ross. Good to see you. Thank you for joining me today. Um, I remember watching and actually flipping to a different station and watching, and I was shocked that so many people were defiant about it and that they viewed it as an attack when immediately my response was, oh, the health professionals are telling us what's in our best interest so that we don't get sick and so that we don't pass that on to others. But it was the weirdest thing to see people immediately take this as an affront to their freedom. Like, okay, that just seems strange to me. It just seems strange on the face of it, right? And but I also know that part of the reason that I had a different reaction was because of my life experience. Okay. So aside from what I felt was the natural, well, you listen to medical professionals, you listen to scientists when they tell you, how to stay safe or, what's in your best interest, what have you, right? Aside from that, I'd already had the lived experience of for years and years uh, traveling and working in Japan, where it was commonplace. It was not unusual at all to see people walking around with masks on, and a great many people walking around with masks on, getting on trains uh, and walking downtown and in businesses and what have you. And I remember learning about the whole idea of I thought that all these people were probably germaphobes. That was my initial thought, just looking at that. Oh, these people don't want to catch germs. They're afraid they're going to get germs. And then having it explained to me later that no, what it is they're probably sick or they're feeling a little under the weather and they are protecting you. So they're wearing the mask to protect all the people around them. This is a sign of respect. And it was right in line with what I've learned about the Japanese culture, right? It is that sense of community and being aware and being respectful and being honoring of the people around you. And so, having experienced that for years, when they said wear the mask, it just was like, okay. And it made sense to me. And there was nothing about it that I felt would hurt me or somehow curtail or or risk my freedom over it. And I thought, well, yeah, of course I'll do that. It's and so and let me say this. Do I enjoy wearing a mask? No. No, I don't enjoy it. In fact, I'm claustrophobic. I also have bronchitis. So the idea of wearing a mask is not ideal for me. It's not. But I never hesitate to put it on. I'm like, yeah, no problem. Throw it on. Um, because I knew what the greater good was, right? And it was the honoring, respectful thing to do with the hopes of trying my best not to spread anything and to some degree offering some degree of protection, right? Not complete protection, but some degree of it, more so than not having it. And I thought it was so interesting, the perspective that some people I don't know if it was immediately or if they saw someone, some talking head on TV say it or what have you, but this idea of going immediately to this idea that no, I won't wear one, you're trying to take away my freedoms, and that it was some kind of conspiracy and plot. And I kept trying to, and I always try to think about and I'm a very analytical person. Most of my friends and family would tell you, like, I analyze and I acknowledge that sometimes I overanalyze things. And so I'm very thoughtful about dang near everything. So I try to reason through and go, okay, well, what's the what's the end result of all this? So if you're saying that this is an infringement on our freedom and what have you to wear a mask during a pandemic, I couldn't figure out what the end game was. So if you're telling me that that is somehow taking away my freedom and that this is the beginning of something, this slippery slope, I'm like, tell me where that makes sense. I just don't get it. Unless you're going so far into it to say that they're introducing this as kind of like the beginning point, but eventually they're going to start taking away lots of other freedoms. I'm like, oh, okay, but this still seems like a logical step to me, given what we're facing in the moment, right? In the moment, there's nothing weird about this or strange. I mean, maybe weird in that we don't normally do it all the time in the United States, but certainly nothing. I just didn't see the conspiracy. I didn't see the end result being something nefarious, right? Um, Mr. Scott, hey, how are you, sir? I think if some of our political leaders talked positively about wearing masks and demonstrated them, mask wearing would have gone over better with a lot of people. Oh, I fully agree. I fully agree. And that's what I kind of meant by talking heads. I mean, usually when I've heard of talking heads, I mean the people who host, opinion shows that they call news, but it's really just an opinion show. And some of the political shows that sometimes um, that's the case. And so if that's what you're listening to, and then you get that in your head of, oh, someone's trying to take something away from me. Oh, oh, okay. But again, if you think it through and you analyze it, I'm like, what? Where's the end game of that? I don't get it. You would have to show me steps 2 and 3, and at that point, then I'll go, okay, well, step 3 is a bridge too far. I'm not doing that, or I'm going to put up opposition to that. But step 1 makes sense. It's just logical, just makes sense. Even if I hadn't spent time in Japan, it still seemed logical. It made a lot of sense just on the face of it. So why not? We have Dr. Williams on. Hey, Miss Vera, how are you? Yes, isn't it interesting that we simply live and react in a way that is for the greater good, not just with maths, but in our daily walk. This seems so simple, but we all have different perspectives. Yeah, it is interesting, and it's interesting how we are influenced by others, and that colors and forms our perspective, right, on various things, what we hear other people say and do. And there are certain people that have mindsets that immediately go scared to the negative, right? That all they need is one person to tell them, well, you know what they're trying to do, right? And you're ready to go down that rabbit hole with them because you already have a leaning towards believing in conspiratorial things, or that the world is out to get you, or what have you, right? So there are folks who live their lives like that are constantly looking for the next thing. And um, I think I mentioned to you guys before on this program that I had a relative, that there was a period of time where I remember talking to them all the time, and they would take up so much of my day because we'd have these conversations, and it was always the most negative and just couldn't see any light. No, there was no perspective in there whatsoever in our conversations. And I was always trying to get them to see the light in things. And like, no, everyone's not like that. And oh, this. And then I realized I was taking up so much of my valuable time in life having these discussions. And then it finally occurred to me, that's where this person lives. They live and thrive on all that stuff going on, right? They thrived on it. And after a while I could finally see, oh, and they're dragging me with them. They're dragging me down with them. And I finally had to just cut that off and say, you know what? There were just times when I'm like, I'm not answering the phone, or they would say whatever they're going to say. And I would say, okay, well, sorry you feel that way. And I wouldn't give any fuel to that fire, right? That they wanted the argument. They wanted the fight. They wanted to spew the negativity and stuff. They wanted all of that. That's what kept them going. That was their thing. And I'm like, yeah, that's not my thing. So you can have that. You can have that. I'm not playing that game. And it got to a point where for a long stretch of time, I just didn't talk to that person. I just didn't, love them to death. Love them to death. If they needed me, I'd be there for them. But I wasn't going to engage in those conversations anymore because they lacked perspective. And that's just where they lived. Whereas I don't even know if I want to say always, but most of my life, I feel that I've always been someone who watched people. I've been at least a people watcher and observed human behavior. And it's always interested me and intrigued me. I'm a person that would, especially in all my travels and stuff and airports and stuff, a lot of the time I just spend my time just sitting there, while waiting for, my next plane or, whatever, or waiting for luggage to come out, just watching people, and I just find it fascinating how different people respond to different stimuli, and how something that doesn't bother this person at all will take person B and it will set them off. And they are ready to throw down and whatever. And it's like, that's fascinating to me. That the one person heard the exact same thing and they were like, okay. And they went on about their lives. And the other person was so infuriated, they just couldn't even, they're just foaming at the mouth. Like just can't even function anymore without getting into a big fight about, whatever it is, and carrying it on to, like, you knew that they were going to carry that on for the rest of the day, and everyone they encountered for the next week at least, we're going to hear this story and hear their opinion about it. And so let's go back to the mask just for a second. So this is one of the things this week that still is kind of just perplexes me a little. I'll just use that word for now. The people that, okay, so I guess at the end of the day, you have your freedom and your choice to say, I am not going to wear a mask. Okay, so that's one thing, right? It's another thing to then, and I'm gonna give you a couple examples, to go to a store or a public, some public place that clearly displays out front, please wear a mask. You're required to wear a mask here. And to say, you're not going to tell me what to do. I'm going to go into your store, your place, and defy what you have said you want to have take place on your property, in your space, to show you, right? That is amazing to me. It's one thing to say, for me, I don't want to do this. But then to say to someone else who has chosen, this is what I want to do, that you're going to defy them and potentially, because for me, there's always that question of, well, what if? What if I'm wrong? Right? In my analyzing of my actions and reactions and stuff like that, and the opinions and positions that I will take in life, I will often ask myself, what if I'm wrong? I always try to be as informed as possible. I try to do my research and all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, I've got to make a call. And even when I make that call and that choice and that decision, I still, in the midst of doing that, go, what if I'm wrong? Okay. So if I'm wrong, again, let's just use the mask. If me wearing the mask actually does nothing, doesn't help anybody, doesn't help me, what have you, what is the end result of the hurt that I've caused by wearing the mask? And with my intent, my intent being to protect others, to keep myself and others safe. If that's what I'm doing, why does that make you so angry? What about that is so infuriating to you that another human being is taking steps and taking a particular action in which they hope to help others? Why is that so? Why does that make you so angry? And I think that that's the point where you have to step back and ask yourself, well, wait a minute, why am I so angry about that? What about that is making me so angry? Because on one hand, I'm saying I have every right to do whatever I want to do. And this is my house, and this is my car, and this is my body, and I get to choose. But then when someone else says it and it differ from your opinion, they're worthy of being attacked. So, where does that come from? What's that perspective about? And I would love to know. So if there's anybody who's watching and you can explain to me, I would love to have you share that with me, even offline. Please explain that to me, because I don't get that. I've seen videos, on social media and stuff where you people who go into stores or go into public places, and because they've chosen not to wear a mask, they intentionally go and mock others by coughing in their face or getting right in their face with no mask or touching lots of things. You know what I mean? Like to mock them or to yell and scream at them and curse them and all of these things. And I'm like, okay, how'd you get from you have a right and your particular rights to now I'm going to infringe on other people's rights, their space, because I disagree with them? It's like, tell me how you got from there to there. Because I get the whole thing of you've made a choice, you've made a decision for yourself. Whether you've done the homework or not. Like I say, I always try to do the research and I try to, make sure that I know what what I'm talking about and try to be as informed as possible. Maybe you did that and came to the conclusion that no, I'm not wearing a mask. Okay, well that's great for you. And even if you're like the head of your household or whatever, and you've chosen that for your family, okay, well, I disagree with you, but that's up to you. Okay, so you've made that choice, but how do you make that leap from I've made this decision for me and for my family or my household, my business, whatever it is, and it now gives you license to push that and taunt others and get in the way of other people's infringe on their rights and their decision. How is that okay? Someone please explain that to me. Please explain that to me, because I just don't get it. I just don't get it. Well, let's say that I don't get it in a reasonable fashion. I don't get where you can make that call, that decision, and I can't imagine someone telling me, explaining that leap, and me going, okay, now it makes sense. Okay, go ahead and berate them then. Go ahead and infringe on that person's freedoms and their perceived safety and what have you. Yeah, knock yourself out. I can't imagine it, but I'm always willing to listen. There are lots of things that I have a difficulty I have difficulty trying to imagine and understand and comprehend, but I'm always willing to listen, because I always want to learn and I want to be as informed as possible. Um, just in the same way that, like, you guys have heard me talk about, if you watch this program enough, you've heard me talk about how even when I go shopping, there are times that I will go shopping for something and I'm pretty sure I want this thing, or even that I'll put need in quotes, in saying that, oh yeah, this is something I really, really want, perhaps leaning on need. But like, and I always think of Best Buy, because that's usually the place where this type of thing happens, is like either an electronics store or a music store of some sort. And I'll go look at things, and then um and I go, well, I know this is the kind of thing I want, and I'll look at a couple of different products and I'll read the boxes and try to weigh in my mind, look at the price and look at the functionality and this and that, and try to figure out. And there have been so many times that I will do that. I'll spend an hour in the store doing that, looking at the different products, and walk out with nothing. And then come back again, go through that exact same exercise before I finally decide on the thing I'm going to get. And in some cases, some extreme cases, I'll make several trips to the store and go through that same exercise, oftentimes engaging employees and other people who are around and ask their opinions about things before I make the decision, because I really want to be informed. I don't want to be that person that comes home and goes, oh, I bought that and I should have waited, or man, I didn't know that it didn't have that, or oh man. I never want to be that guy, right? And I think that that's kind of just the guy, just like, anyway. So, um, so Miss Vanessa, um, Miss Vanessa, you're in South Africa, right? I am right about that, right? I think, if I remember correctly. She's a selfish dictatorship. Um, yeah, I definitely think it's selfish. Yeah, when you've decided for yourself what you're going to do, and then you decide to want to impose that on someone else, when it's not. So you have to be careful here, because there will be those who will listen to what I'm saying right now and then try to use another example of something and come back and say, well, see, that's the same as. Nope, 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 nope. You have to be careful in what you're saying, because a lot of times people will try their best to use false comparisons. I'm like, nope, that's not the same thing. It's entirely different. But anyway, so that's just that wasn't even really what I was going to talk about today, but that's one of the things that this week I just noticed with some people, and I'm like, what is the deal? And then I have others who I've interacted with who weren't wearing a mask and who were like, hey, and because and depending on where you're living, the mandates are different, right? So you may be in an environment where you don't need to, or whatever, right? Okay, whatever. But I've also been around people who were like, oh, do you need me to put my mask on? Because they're being respectful, right? I'm like, Well, thank you. You've clearly made a choice that you don't want to wear the mask, but you're respectful of my desire, my need for safety, whatever it is. That's a beautiful thing. And it is amazing to me the levels that some people go in the opposite direction and feel justified in doing so. That's fascinating to me. It's fascinating. And I would just be curious to know, and maybe some of you have actually had these conversations with someone else, that you encounter, a family member or a friend or, coworker or something. And maybe you can even share what they've said, because um, I I just can't figure it out. I mean, I hear all the arguments about, freedom, or whatever, but at the end of the day, but that doesn't justify, again, that may justify you and your choices for yourself, but I don't see anywhere that it justifies um, your choices for me or for anyone else or their business or their place. Because just because you want something out of that store doesn't mean you can walk in and just defy their rules um, in the store. And Miss Vanessa says, yes, okay. I just wanted to make sure. Sometimes I get confused. Okay, I know I have these friends. I'm trying to remember where I know them from. I just want to make sure. Because I have been known to mix people up. And I thought you were from Cape Town. That's what I thought. Um, so uh, so anyway, there's that whole thing about masks and all of that. So some of the other things that have been going on, and I always want to make sure I get this in, is that so yesterday I went to vote, to cast my vote uh, in early voting, and I was so grateful for that. So grateful that we have it. To me, it's kind of a no-brainer. Why wouldn't you? Right? Unless cost has something to do with it. Unless it's like we can't afford to man stations or what have you, right? Other than that, I can't imagine why you wouldn't have early voting and always encourage as many people as possible to vote and to make it as easy as possible for people to vote. It always confounds me, frustrates me to no end, and saddens me and angers me the level that some politicians and entities will go to try to keep people from voting. And they will often use the guise of the story that, oh, well, this is for to protect against voter fraud. And if you actually do your research, you actually do your homework, you will find that there are very, very few instances of voter fraud, right? Now, there have been a lot of voter registration, and I don't even know if you want to call it fraud, because I'm not sure if that meets the criteria or the definition of fraud. But yeah, but you've had people who will, like for instance, years back there was an organization, I think it was called Acorn. They did a lot of different things, but one of the things they did was they would participate in these voter registration drives, and so they would get lots of people, and they'd say, hey, we're going to pay you so much, to come in and help register people to vote. And so what some of those people were doing was they would make somehow, I guess they would make more money based on the number of signatures they got, the more people registered. And so they would just, sometimes falsify that to get their money. Now, what you have to understand is that didn't automatically go in the books. Those were still cross-checked, and people would go through that and go, okay, well, clearly Mickey Mouse should not be registered, neither should Donald Duck or Clark Kent, or you know what I mean? Like, and they would go through and they'd wipe those people out, right? And so they never ever make it. Plus, the bigger picture is, even if they were somehow listed It would then take someone going in to the proper locale to vote as that person, to walk in and go, I'm Mickey Mouse. I am Donald Duck, and I'm here to vote. In order for it to get to the level that now it's voter fraud, okay, because now you have impersonated someone else. It's one thing to say voter registration in that someone's listed on the rolls who may have passed away. And for whatever reason, sometimes absolutely just legitimate or oversight, whatever, they're still on the rolls. Okay, that in no way affects the end result of the election because that person didn't show up to vote. And if they did, that would be the story that dead person showed up and voted, right? So again, perspective and clarity of understanding what we're talking about. And we're so quick, so many of us are so quick to believe things or to jump to conclusions about things because we've been so conditioned to believe the negative, right? And some of it has to do with the sources of information. Who do we listen to? Who do we talk to? Going back to the whole thing with my cousin, right? That I used to talk to all the time. If I bought into everything he said, over a period of time, that's going to wear on me. And eventually, I may start to see things. And in fact, I was beginning to, in some areas, start to see things the way he saw them. Because he said it enough times, that I'm like, well, wait, well, maybe, and you just get conditioned, right? Brainwashed. And so if you're constantly bombarded by that type of imagery, that type of message, then you're more likely to be someone who will just accept it because, well, it falls in line with how you already think anyway. It just makes sense. Whereas I, for the most part, and every once in a while I'll catch myself and go, wait, let me go back and check. But for the most part, even if it falls in line with how I normally think, or I think it's a duh, of course that's what that is. I will catch myself and go back and do my homework and try to find reputable sources. And again, my life experience, having studied journalism and understanding facts from fiction and facts from rumor and innuendo and all the other stuff, and able to discern that and to know what sources are credible and to know when I'm presented with something, well, did you just present me more innuendo or opinion or these facts? Because there's a difference. And just because someone said it doesn't make it a fact, right? There has to be something to back that up. And most of us, if we're truly honest, don't do that. One, we don't have time. We've got a lot of stuff on our plate. But we somehow find time to repost, retweet, and repeat those messages that we haven't verified. We haven't fact checked because good enough. I trust that person because they think like I think. And that's probably not good enough. Probably not good enough. I've said time and time again, my mom, so, obviously most of us would say this, but in my opinion, my mom was one of the best people who ever walked this earth. One of the best. And there was still, and I'm grateful that she raised me, that I was her son. And I always hope that I'm making her proud, that she would be proud of who I am and what I do. Now, Do I think that she would agree with everything I do? No. Do I think that she would agree with every stance I've taken? No. But I think she would be proud of me in that, again, I do the homework, that I do things from an informed perspective. I think she'd be proud of that because that was one of the most important things she taught me, and that she wanted to make sure that I knew, is that she didn't want me to just parrot what she'd always said or done. She wanted me to do my own research. That's why we had three different kinds of encyclopedias here. We had World Book. We had, oh, what was the other one called? I want to say it was like Americana something. Anyway, and then we had one that was put out by Life, but it was the Negro World Encyclopedia, something like that. That primarily just dealt with um, historical facts and individuals and instances that had to do with people of color. And so I grew up with those resource books on my shelf, on our shelves, I should say. um, those are things I grew up with, along with any number of other resource books. And I'm the child of teachers, of educators, right? My parents and my second set of parents, uh, the Martins, who lived next door to me, who were my uncle and aunt, but also my godparents too, um, or one set of my godparents. I had two sets of godparents, um, but they were also my godparents. They were also educators as well, and I have a great number of educators in my family, and so it was always stressed. You know, find out, do the research yourself. Yeah, I could tell you, but you'd be hearing what my conclusion, what I have learned and believe and say to you. So my parents are always like, no, go pick up a book, figure it out for yourself. Yes, I know the answer. You know, 'cause sometimes I'm doing my homework and I say, Mom and Dad, who was the person that did this and why? We bought those books for a reason. Go look it up. you know, it's like, did they know? Of course they knew the answers, but they wanted me to take that exercise. They wanted me to get used to looking things up, to finding out for myself, rather than always hearing it from them. My mom and I used to always have pretty healthy, robust political debates and ethical debates about different things. And we didn't always agree. But I think she always respected my opinion because I always came at it from an informed position of, no, I did my research. I looked it up, and not just in one place. I looked it up in a number of different sources, right? Um, so again, sorry, I'm still deviating away from the original thing, but I guess on some level it is still the same thing. It's perspective, right? So, excuse me, it's about gaining perspective on everything, and that's one of the things that I always try to do. So, again, last week I said that I was going to share some information with you uh, about a number of things. So one was yesterday, literally yesterday, I voted, and I thank my big brother, Coach Martin, for reminding me, because I knew it in the back of my head. I knew I wanted to vote, and I got tied up in doing stuff. I was all busy, like I said, I've got a lot of stuff on my plate right now, and and he sent me a text, just reminding me, don't forget to vote, you know, and I like to vote early when I can. I like to go ahead and vote early, um, and quote unquote get it out of the way. But it's more about, I don't really want to go stand in a long line with a lot of people either. So if I can find a time to go when there's not a lot of people, and I kind of lucked up that there was nobody in there when I went in. So I went through, voted, left, and as I got back to the parking lot, I saw the next person drive up to go in. So I was lucky in that respect. But at the same time, it was kind of sad because, I wish more people were voting and taking part in the process. But even more so, I wish more people were making sure that they fully inform themselves before stepping in that booth. But in any respect, I just think that we all should be doing that, should vote. Okay, so 2 weeks ago, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, I think it was, I got vaccinated for COVID-19. I got the Moderna vaccine, so that means I have to have a second one. And so that'll be at the end of the month. I'll go back and I'll get that uh, vaccination. And then, from what I understand, 2 weeks after that, I'm kind of safe to then ramp up the not mask wearing under certain conditions, and you know what I mean. I'm not saying, oh, now I'm immune. Like, no, I know that's not the case. I know that I'm not immune, and I know that that doesn't mean that I can't pass it on to someone else. What it does mean is that the odds of me ending up on a ventilator or dying from it, should I contract it, have just dropped down to nearly zero. So um, that's a good thing. And again, I'm not here to tell you that every single person should get the vaccine, because that's also not the case. There are certain people, depending on their underlying conditions and pre-existing conditions, should not get it. And there are reasons for that. And they should consult their personal physician, as Dr. Vera Williams always talks about and stresses. You should talk to your personal physician and find out, is this a good thing for me or is it a bad thing for me? And then proceed accordingly. And to find out, if there are any alternative steps that you can take to help mitigate the risk. Because at the end of the day, the sooner that we all get on board and we mitigate the risk for the populace, the sooner we can get back to all the stuff that everyone's always complaining about life back to normal, back to normal. Okay, I don't know that life will ever be back to normal, or that it should be back to normal, but some sense of normalcy, yes. Just like, and I always give the example of 9/11. It's like after 9/11, we went into extreme lockdown in a lot of ways. We eventually got back to a sense of normalcy, but it wasn't what existed before that. Um, it A number of things have changed. So especially if you fly, right? You know that security is much different, right? Because prior to 9/11, there was a point where you could just walk through to the gate, right? Yeah, you'd have to go through security, but you could walk down to the gate and wait for your friends and family and stuff to get off the plane and meet them right at the gate. For the most part, that no longer exists. You can't do that anymore, right? Except in certain cases. So I think we're more looking towards something like that, and security in other areas too have been ramped up and amped up. So I think that that's what we're looking to be the reality of what we're going to face post COVID-19 pandemic, is some sense of that, where certain things are going to stick for a while. Certain things are, or some variation of some of the steps that we're taking now will be in place, or that they'll limit the number of seats, at certain things, or occupancy those numbers will go down a little bit. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. If it makes sense in terms of keeping us healthy, great. If it makes sense in terms of preparing us for the next pandemic that comes, the next strain of something that comes down the road, then yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. Let's learn these lessons and do what we need to do, and not be so, well, I don't get to do everything I want all the time. I want to do it. Like, no, stop it. I'm all about freedoms too, but I'd rather be alive. Like, and here's my other last little thing I'm going to say about that specifically is that that just kind of drives me nuts is when I hear people um never mind, I won't even get into it. But I do have a message here from Miss Karen who says, may I ask how you feel? Oh, um, I feel great. I feel great. Um, it was it was virtually painless. I mean, I felt the little stick, but it was nothing. I mean, the shot itself was nothing. Um, I know later that evening, my arm felt a little sore, just right. It actually is this arm. Felt a little sore, and it felt sore for a couple of days. But when I say sore, I don't mean like constant pain. I mean, if I if I were to lean against something, I would go, oh yeah, that's right. I got a shot there. That's what it would be. That was the limit of any side effects or anything that resulted from me having that shot. So so I was good. That was my experience. It was it was nice. The people who administered were very nice and efficient and attentive, and they make you sit there for a while. They even put a timer. I didn't even get out of my car. They put a timer on my hood of my car, and when the timer went off, they come over and question you and say, how you feeling? I'm like, yeah, I feel great. Yeah, good. You're good to go. But if you have any problems, let us know, or whatever. So so yeah. So for whatever that's worth, that's what it was like for me. That was my experience. Now I've heard of other people, and not many, but I've heard of a couple of instances where people experience something a little more extreme than that. But I have yet to hear of anybody, at least that I know personally or indirectly, um, that had any major reaction or response to it, um, that seems scary. I'm not saying that doesn't exist. I'm just saying I hadn't heard of that. Um, so the most frustrating thing for me is just the waiting process for the next time I can take it, because it does limit some of the things I can do, and I'm looking forward to being able to expand what I can do, where I can go, and who I can interact with. So that's what I'm looking forward to doing that. So I'm like, let's do what we need to do to make that happen, and then move on. So so that's that. We're coming down to our hour, and I I once again want to say thank you to all of you who have watched and participated in this program. I I didn't really tell you the stuff I was going to tell you, um, other than the shot, the voting, and just talking about some ideas of perspective. Last week I did kind of say I was going to announce some other stuff, but I think I'm going to wait another week, just because just some sensitivity around some stuff. But um, it has to do with some of the stuff that's on my plate. I'll just put it that way. Um, I would like. I'm excited about some of the things um, that I want to share that are happening on a couple of different fronts in my life, uh, both of which I never really expected to happen, especially at this stage of my life and where I am right now. Didn't expect either of those things to happen, but I've been honored and blessed um, with some really cool opportunities, and I'm excited to share those. But I'm going to hold off another week before I do that officially. And oh, thank you, Ms. Ferrer, and thank you so much for all that you do in your broadcast and your nonprofit as well, and what you do in the community is really, really appreciated. You'll notice that a lot of the stuff I'm saying, I'm spouting because I heard you say it. I mean, I've also done my homework, as I said, but um, but I am repeating some of the things you said as a trusted medical professional that I listen to. Um, and Miss Karen, thank you again. Big hug to you. Say hello to my friends, and be nice. um, Big hugs to you as well, and to everyone in Hamburg and Germany. Thank you all so much for joining. I really, really appreciate it. We will see you guys again next week, and also hoping to let you know pretty soon about. I'm hoping maybe next week we might even have some dates for the Believe camps. Uh, so we will be having some Believe camps this summer. At least it looks like we will be. So I hope to inform you guys about that and some of the new offerings that we're going to have. And there's a lot of exciting stuff happening, but we will keep you posted on that. And we have some exciting guests coming up too that we're working on. So excited to share all of that with all of you. Please be safe. Please be careful, and love one another. Yeah, life's too short. Yes, love one another. Alrighty. So that I think is going to do it for me. And I will, as soon as I figure out the right buttons to push, I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.